public input. First up, we have Paula Browning regarding mixed-use zones and permitted light commercial activities in the context of our ongoing decision-making. I've seen Paula out. Oh, there she is. If you'd like to come up to the front table. And you've got your microphones there, and there's a button, the silver buttons on the right will allow you to turn the mic on and off. Thank you. And just want to again reiterate my apologies from last time. You waited a long time to speak, but due to delays that were unforeseen, you couldn't speak last time. So apologies again, and thank you for coming back.
Ngā mihi. Morena koutou, thank you for your time today. I'm here in support of, both in support of housing intensification in Tamaki, and to give you an example of where a council planning decision in a housing intense mixed use area is having a significant negative impact. The image in this slide is taken from a report for an application for resource consent. The application was from the owner of Coleman's Suzuki, who was moving a motorcycle workshop from and retail business from a commercial zone to a mixed use zone. I've added notes to the slide to show the number of residential units in the immediate vicinity of 40 McKelvey Street in Grey Lynn, and you can see that there are 85 residences within 20 metres of that property. There are 2 apartment blocks of the same design directly facing 40 McKelvey, which is one of 8 commercial properties in this section of the street that runs between Williamson Ave and Crummer Road. 24 of these homes have bedrooms on the front of the building. The commercial properties include a rug retailer, fabric wholesaler, a bridal shop, panel beater and design studio. The combined impact of these businesses on the residents in the street is close to zero. Prior to the motorcycle shop taking over the lease, a plumbing world trade store had been occupied the building for many years, and there'd been no noise or traffic issues to my knowledge. Alexandra Bonham, who's a member of the Waitemata local board, had made a submission to the consent process and asked that residents be notified. The town planner ignored this and issued a consent that has a small number of conditions, none of which alleviate noise or traffic issues generated by this commercial activity. As residents who both live and in many cases like me work in McKelvey Street, we had no input into the consent process. This is in spite of the fact that the predominant use in our area is clearly residential. On the numbers alone, I believe the town planner should have been required to notify residents during the consent process. As you can see in this image, the operation of the business is conducted as much on the forecourt of the building as it is within the building. Even when motorcycle repair work is done within the building, the noise is amplified, not dampened. The consent application showed 4 cars parked on the forecourt, but every morning and again in the evening, 30 or more motorbikes are ridden into and out of the building. This is obviously additional traffic movement to the customers of the business coming and going on motorbikes. The loading bay to the left is not used for loading. That's done on the street where you can see the cardboard boxes. These are new motorbikes. The packing, which includes wood and metal, is removed using power tools on the road. The process that the town planner used to reach the decision relating to this business is quite baffling. In his decision, he states that the surrounding area is primarily commercial. The existence of a panel beater and a service station either next door and out on Williamson Ave in the vicinity are similar activities to the proposed activity. That motorcycle maintenance and retail is an activity that is compatible with residential occupancy. He equates motorbike noise with other vehicle noise and assesses the impact of noise from the site as minor. Now that the consent is in place, as residents we have very limited options available to us to address the impact on where we live. We can and have asked the council consents team to enforce the consent terms. Following their visit, the maintenance activity does move inside for a short period of time, but then it goes back to how it previously was, which is in front of the loading bay. In either location, the noise levels are not acceptable for residents. The council process for noise control is also useless to us, as the excessive noise level from the site is regular and intermittent rather than constant. Auckland Transport have, I believe, attended the site, but will only act on single issues which they require to be reported each time, rather than addressing day-to-day operation of the site. With Auckland needing to address an existing housing shortage and population growth, higher density living, including in mixed-use zones, will need to be an attractive option. Planning decisions, such as this one made in regard to 40 McKelvey, have a direct impact on the livability of mixed-use areas. Unlike new builds or conversions, which involve temporary traffic and noise disturbance, use consents last for as long as the business occupies the site. Having lived in mixed-use areas for over 2 decades, I know that activity and noise levels will be greater than those in residential areas. Prior to the arrival of Coleman's, we had lived happily in McKelvey for 10 years. Now we're actively considering moving. Activities such as large motorcycle repair businesses have a significant negative impact in areas with levels of high residential occupancy. I was asked this committee to consider this example when looking at how council can better manage consenting of commercial activities in mixed-use areas. A decision that was probably made sitting at a desk from an application that was accepted at face value is negatively impacting the livability of our community. Thank you.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Paula. That was 5 minutes to the second. You did say you planned it, and you did.
I did.
Thank you. That's very crucial information, and I think very important. We're just discussing if there is a short response at the moment. I'll just see if there's any questions right now. It's pretty straight. Oh, Councillor Ferry.
Thanks, Paula. That was really useful. Noting that there are other mixed-use businesses in the area, have you had any other issues with any other mixed-use businesses, or is it really just this one?
Just this one.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Just checking if there may not be enough for a response right now, but definitely keen to look into this and what we can do. Thank you. Cool. So we're just going to ask we might not need to do a resolution, but I'm just going to request staff report back to myself and the committee on light industrial effects within mixed-use zones and how they can be mitigated, and specifically on the area of concern. So we'll get some information up on that and then see what we can put into future plans. It may be difficult to deal with what is existing, but we will look into it, and then I'll get staff to work directly with you on that as well. And if there are other noise-related issues that we need to follow up within the existing, I guess, constraints or levels, that should also be looked into. But that's, very important point that, especially your support for the intensification, but when those areas abut clearly, or the change of use within those areas and not what is expected, how they can affect our community. So thanks very much, Paula, for that example.
Ngā mihi, thank you.
Sorry, we've got a councillor.
No, just from you to yourself. Can we ask also for any histories on this site to make sure we get a feedback of what? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Good point. Thank you, Paula. Appreciate it. Councillor Ferry, would you like to move this? And Councillor Turner, second. Right. All those in favour? Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Right. Now we move on to John Collins, Friends of Awa Matakana Kana. And John, sorry, I didn't have the other person.
Martin Evans.
Martin Evans, sorry.
Martin Evans. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. I'm the chair of the Friends of Awa Matakana Kana. Our concern is about the catchments of our two rivers, the Matakana and the Glen Eden, in the northeastern part of the region. Our focus is limiting contamination, limiting sediment, stopping contamination, and promoting enjoyment of the rivers. What we do is we have quarterly river water quality monitoring, which is fairly comprehensive. Also includes bacterial testing. Water quality generally is in decline. We manage continuous sediment measuring instruments every 10 minutes in the Matakana River, regular shellfish surveys, selected riparian planting and wetland restoration as funds allow, research and catchment analysis, and submissions and advocacy. We're a small group. We have 35 members who've contributed over 7,000 volunteer hours worth about $170,000. We're fortunate to have several specialist technical members in the group, and I'd like now to introduce Martin Evans, who is our Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you, John. My background, I'm a civil and environmental engineer, and I've been involved in several major pieces of infrastructure development. I'm going to talk on three main topics. One is the biodiversity, then the sediment, and then there's flooding. You can see from the slide on the right there in the green box, we've just recently done DNA testing of the river, which basically looks at what critters live there. We've surprisingly found a nationally vulnerable species, which is internationally recognised. It's called the short-jawed cockapoo. It's regarded as the kiwi of the river. We've also got freshwater mussels in there, and as you can see by the name, it's an Auckland mussel. We also have limpets in there, which glow in the dark, and they're the only ones in the world that do that. So we have some valuable taonga in the river. Our catchment area, you can see from the slide, is the black outline. We have Matakana village, which is in the middle. It's about 2,000 to 3,000 people. And at the bottom end, we have the Sandspit Spit, which has a council car park for the Kowau residents, and the ferry for the Kowau Island. The catchment area is 58 square kilometres. It's got one of the highest rainfalls in Auckland of 1,450 millimetres a year, which is higher than Hanua's, but we don't have dams to stop the sediment and the runoff. As John mentioned, there's two main rivers there. Each is about 14 kilometres long, and they lead into Kowau Bay and then the Hauraki Gulf. As John mentioned, we measure the sediment in the river, and I can see what's going on in the river on my phone sitting here, because it's real time. And it's simply, this river's got so much sediment in it, it just cannot meet the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. We have very large plumes come through, and we can see that all the time. There's one coming through at the moment. And it deposits in the estuary, and then it deposits in Kowau Bay and swamps everything. Fundamentally, these are the neglected catchments and estuary and bay. There's no monitoring here other than a bit of water quality monitoring by REMO. Foam, as a small group on $2,000 a year budget, has got more information about these catchments than council. There's a broad environmental decline in the rivers and the estuary, because we look at these shellfish too. There are large areas of the community and environment at risk from erosion, flooding, health, because we do backtoe testing, we know where it's safe to swim and where it isn't, and our biodiversity. I'll just move on to flooding aspects now. The slide up at the moment shows you a 45-year record from the Tamahanga catchment, which is next door. This is about 8 square kilometres, so it's only about a sixth of the size. We don't have any river gauging or rain gauging in our catchments. The January storm, if you look on the right, you'll see it was only about 47 cubic metres a second, and we've had several of those through the years. We had a bigger one in 2011, which flooded the market, the shops, and the restaurant. We had an even bigger one in 1985, and of about 94 cubic metres a second. We're expecting another big one in the next, say, 5 to 8 years. To give you an idea for these things, it takes, for the Matakana River, it will take about 10 seconds to fill this room on the smallest one of those flows, and then about 1 second for the next largest one. That's gone the wrong way. In 1938, there's evidence that the flood that came through was 2 foot above the roundabout. So if any of you have been to Matakana, you'll know that that's a lot. And there's a misunderstanding that the Matakana River drains Matakana. It doesn't. It goes the other way. So this will go through the new subdivisions that are going in at the moment. The locals tell us there was another one in 1936, which was the same size. So why have we come here today is we are seeking some support, and specifically a strategic plan to minimise the river risks and start restoration in the rivers. we really need a definitive commitment from council to work with us to get on with this. We'd like to organise a workshop to share our knowledge with everybody else, including Ngāti Manahiri. We need to take a comprehensive 3D drone survey of the river's floodplains because the maps the council have are not accurate. They were flown too long ago. And ultimately what we need to prepare is an integrated catchment management plan and maintenance plan, and using natural intervention processes, because whilst I'm an engineer, I recognise that you can't stop some of these big floods. We just have to mitigate them. That will start reducing the risk, and our strategic plan, which is in your documents, is a step along the way. Fundamentally, the problem we're seeing is that people at the bottom of the catchment don't know what's going on at the top of the catchment, and therefore they're wasting a lot of time and money planting, riparian planting, to get swept downstream. Thank you for your time.
Excellent.
Thank you. So, thank you very much, John and Martin. Do we have any questions? Councillor Baker.
Thanks, guys. Have you had any, I mean, so there's a number of these big rural rivers, so the Hoteo, the Wairoa down in Franklin, and so in Franklin there's the Friends of Te Wairoa, who are probably a group fairly similar to you. Do you have any engagement with them in terms of trying to get a sort of a collaborative approach to working with council so that these big rivers that are suffering under the, you know, as the reasons you've put out, do you have any engagement with them?
So we attempted to liaise with the Kaipara Moana group, but I asked if we could collaborate and was told categorically no. So that was somewhat disappointing for us. It should be noted that the geology for these three rivers, the Tamahanga, Matakana and Glen Eden, is quite different to the rest of Auckland. And therefore you can't necessarily take one thing in one catchment and apply it to another. It's catchment specific.
Councillor Say is online. You have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Martin and John, for coming in today. Just through the chair, I really support the work that this group's doing. They've obviously got a short time to present to us today, but they have a very strong working relationships with the Rodney local board, with the community, with wider community groups. They're always in contact with, with the whole district in terms of the work they're doing, and they have very strong support from the wider Warkworth area. So I think that's just important for my colleagues to know. But the question is, I know that you have had a working relationship, or you do have a working relationship that's been quite strong with Auckland Council in certain areas, but you've come to us today to seek help to open some doors so you can share your information. Is that with, do you think that's with the REMU, or is that with Healthy Waters or some other group? Because we can't make any decisions for you today, but we perhaps can a minute, the ability for you to at least have a meeting with the correct group that you're seeking to engage more closely with, and that may be helpful for you.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. It's a holistic. If you see the word at the start, it starts with the word holistic, and that's because we have to cover all the bases, which includes REMU, which is a monitoring and data gathering group, as well as Healthy Waters. And we're talking to Healthy Waters, and I'm talking to the operations manager for Healthy Waters on a regular basis to try and fix the log jams that are currently sitting in the Matakana River. So it's across the whole package that you have to look at. You can't look at one thing in isolation.
I would add to that.
So Martin, sorry if I may add through your chair, just so if you need to talk to a specific department, Martin, is what I'm trying to gauge. Is it Healthy Waters that you obviously got a working relationship with them, but who do you need greater assistance with to share that information? Are you looking, when you say holistic, is the chief executive or someone else, or chair, you might be able to give some guidance?
So my pick would be Healthy Waters, because we need a catchment management plan ultimately.
Okay, thank you. Chair, if, I know in the resolution sometimes we might give some guidance to officers that perhaps they could meet, or I know we can't make a decision, but is there a possibility in our thank you minute today just to ask for the opportunity to meet with perhaps Craig Mick or somebody like that?
Kia ora, Councillor. Yes, I just spoke to Megan about that. On the specific requests, the four, Megan will follow those up with